Another index recently in the news, that is the Consumer Food Price Index. This index is related to our inflation concept also, which is part of our Indian economy syllabus, inflation. And there was a discussion about, many times there was a discussion about retail inflation, wholesale price index, consumer price index. These were discussed many times in the news recently. And recent trend, when there was a new data with regard to the consumer price index and the retail inflation, there is a reduction, or there is a slowdown of the food price index, or we can say the retail inflation, was there is a trend is discussed in the news that time. And accordingly, because of the latest data, there is a softening, there is a slowing down of the retail inflation. And based on that, there was a data discussed and the editorial also discussed in the Hindu with regard to the new trend of inflation, the related trend of the inflation in India. And in that particular editorial, which is titled as Cold Comfort, the Hindu editorial, which is titled as Cold Comfort, it has mentioned about the consumer food price index. And normally, most of us, we studied about wholesale price index, consumer price index as part of our inflation related indexes. But here, the consumer food price indexes we miss also. So sometime in the future prelims, we can expect a question on consumer food price index. And those who do not know what is exactly wholesale price index, consumer price index, please refer that these things which is mentioned in this here. The retail inflation, the wholesale price index, consumer price index, please refer to that also. These three things, please refer to know more about that. Today, we will more focus on the consumer food price index. So food inflation is also going on whenever you go to market, any market, when you purchase for vegetable also, it's also cost a lot. For tomato or other vegetables, when you purchase in the market, now it's cost a lot. So there is a food price increase in the new trend. It's also an inflation, is part of inflation. So those index of the food prices will be calculated or call it as consumer food price index. It is a measure of changes. It is a measure of changes in the retail price of food product consumed by defined population in a group in a given area with reference to a base year. There will be a base year, a defined group of population in a given area, and the retail price of that food product will be measured under the consumer food price index. This is what the index is calculated for and calculating for. And it is again released by, this index is released by Ministry of Statistics and Implementation. Again, same like the periodic labor survey we discussed just before. It is also released by the Ministry of Program and Implementation, and the office is Central Statistic Office. Under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, they release the data with regard to consumer food price indexes. They started releasing the food price indexes since May 2004. It categorized the index into three: rural, urban, and combined. Combined means both the urban and rural together. So this has three categories of indices: rural, urban, and combined data of rural and urban. It started from the May 2014. A separate food price indices was prepared by Central Statistical Office also, which is also comes under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, which is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. Like the CPI also calculated on monthly basis. That means consumer price index is also monthly based index. Similarly, the CFPA is also calculated on a monthly basis. Methodology also remains the same as consumer price index. Basically, it is focusing, taking on the retail inflation trend, taking a group of population in a geographical area, and the base year is presently used as 2012. 2012 is the current base year, followed by the consumer food price index released by Central Statistical Office under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. These are the facts we need to remember with regard to consumer food price index. If any questions come, which of the following release the consumer food price index, or which is of the following is the base year of consumer food price index, or what are the categories of food price index like rural or urban, And the other fact also we can expect in the prelims examination, that with this fact you please study about consumer food price index. Please revise this content for your prelims examination. That is what with regard to consumer food price index as part of our inflation trend. You know that inflation is going high now. There was stagflation concept was discussed in the news. Different data, different indices of the inflation was discussed in the news. So to know the economy related topic, to find the economy relevant topic, especially with regard to banking sector, inflation, the trade sector, you can see this, the news from the page number 14 today is a business page. The business page of the Hindu mostly discuss about the economy related fact of our syllabus. So this in today's news, there was a news about the rise, the policy, monetary policy, and what measures should be taken in order to control inflation was discussed in the today's news. You can see that the paragraph is start, Indian Central Bank has no choice but to raise its interest rate to keep lid on the inflation expectation, as supply side measures would take time to bring down the prices, according to the deputy governor of the RBI. In order to control the inflation, normally the monetary policy or RBI increase the interest rate to control the inflation. That is inflation. When people have a lot of money in their hand, it's resulting into an inflation. So it also resulting into devaluating our currency value also. So in order to control this rise in the prices, sometimes government come up with increase in the interest rates. So recently they have increased the policy rate also, mostly decided by the monetary policy committee. So study and revise about monetary policy committee and what are the measures RBI would take in order to control the inflation. So these are the things which coming in the news. That way inflation is regularly coming in the news. That way we can expect questions in the future also with regard to indices or the concept related to inflation.